This is the Whole Care Network, helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
Welcome, my friend, to A Time to Care the Caregivers Podcast. I'm Isabel Melgarejo, your host, and I'm super excited to have today with me Alara Rosenberg. Welcome, Alara.
Yay, so happy to be here. I'm really excited.
Me too. Alara is a retirement coach. Tell us a little bit more about what you do and who you help and how you help them.
I help people who are getting ready to retire or have recently retired. So through the entire retirement transition, often I'll say new and prospective retirees. And I help people with the social and emotional challenges of retirement. A lot of people know that you have to focus on the financial side of retirement, of course. And lesser known side is that there's also a lot of challenges with all of the other changes that happen in retirement. So I focus on helping people find their new sense of self, their new identity after they've left behind their career and this title that they've had for so many years. And there's all of this potential and time and freedom in retirement, and figuring out the best way to embrace that and use that time in meaningful ways is something that really needs to be done intentionally. So that's the process that we work through.
I find that it's really important to go through this process because since we're born, they ask us what you do. So usually when you meet someone, they ask your name and then they ask what you do. So for the past 50, 60 years, you've been saying, I'm in this grade in school, I do this at work, and then that's about all the extent you have as a person, a name and what you do. And when you retire, you lose that. What are some of the main challenges that people face when retiring?
Well, you hit on a big one. The identity piece is huge because that really is one of the first questions that we ask. It's how we identify with who we are, what we do. So as we're retiring, we don't have that role anymore. Often children are grown and out of the house, so that parental role is also different. And it's like, what do I do and who am I? So that's a first piece of really like consciously creating this new identity. Who do you want to be in retirement? What do you really want to do? And that process involves getting in touch with forgotten dreams, sometimes things we've left behind from before the career, before the children and the house, and all of the things that we do through the middle aged years. And then also a big piece is developing social connections, the social network. And we don't realize like how much our jobs really do for us. Stereotypically, you're like, oh, retirement, it's going to be amazing and everything is just going to be perfect because who wants to go to work?
Yeah.
And a big piece is really realizing like how much work does for us. So one of the things is the social network. We have such great connections with coworkers and clients and the people that we just naturally interact with. In retirement, those go away overnight. And in addition, our relationships with everyone else changes dramatically. So all of a sudden with our partners, there's sometimes a lot more time that we're together in the house. And that can be challenging in itself. Relationships with grown children and grandchildren change, and boundaries have to be set in different ways to figure out what do you really want your life to look like. The social piece is huge. We also have developing healthy habits, like noticing, like, of course, our bodies are changing. You're getting older. how can you set yourself up for success so that you're really having these habits that will keep you healthy and increase longevity so that you're really healthy, vibrant, and mobile through for many, many years.
I was just having that conversation with my mother-in-law who came for Mother's Day. I don't know if they came for Mother's Day or just because it was time for them to come and say hello. We were driving together, just the two of us, and we were mentioning the importance of building a strong buddy. I'm turning 40 this year, and I know menopause is coming. So I don't want to get to that point weak. So for the past year and a half, I've been very intentional on what I eat, on the exercise I do, because I want to get to that point of very, very strong. And the same happens with my mom. During COVID, she stopped exercising and she lose a lot of strength. And she doesn't want to get into her 80s, 90s with a weak body. She wants to be as strong as possible so she can move, she can have all the mobility and go all the places that she wants to go. So that is a huge one. And even though I had considered, and I've always considered that, I had never been aware of the importance of that.
Yeah, it hits people hard when like really the basics start to not be just something that is natural. And that's like the things like balance and walking up and down stairs and just being able to get around with ease. And that's the stuff. And I love working with this age group because right at retirement, most people are still very mobile. And it's a great time to put in these routines for mobility and to start to develop strength that will keep them healthy. And really, it comes down to freedom and independence eventually, where like you want to be able to get around yourself. And that's something that like you can get through so many of the middle-aged years ignoring. And unfortunately, a lot of people do through as they're working and they take it for granted. Retirement is a great time with more time, more freedom to put in these like healthy habits that are going to keep the body mobile.
You talked about identity, mobility, or body, and then you talked about the social component. What do you think is the biggest challenge in terms of community? Obviously, you're not going to work, so how do you build those relationships and how do you build a new network that works good for you in retirement?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it definitely is, it's a process that's different for everyone because everyone has different needs in terms of what is socially fulfilling for them. I think the biggest thing is just being intentional about it. Things come a lot easier and more smoothly for a lot of people through their like younger years because networks are developed around their children and children's activities, and then they're centered around work, and there's work events that keep the social cup filled in a lot of ways. And then in retirement, it's like taking some time to really experiment and research and look at what's going on in the community, what's of interest. And it takes a period of figuring out, like just trying some new things and putting yourself out there to figure out like, yeah, where are my new friends? Where's my new social group?
Do you find it is hard for people to start putting themselves out there? Because I feel that 20-year-olds and 60-year-olds always say, I'm too old for that.
Oh my gosh, it's such a big thing. That's one of the core components also is this attitude about aging and attitude about where you are with whatever age you're at, because you're exactly right. We say we're too old for things like starting at age 20. And to be able to reframe your age at retirement and say it's okay to be a beginner again at something. Like it's okay to go to a class and try something for the very first time. And to be able to say, if I start now, like I have decades to work on this skill or to try things out. So it's definitely a reframing of that mindset. And it's Yeah, it's such a great time. It's such a great time because you have this freedom to explore interests and passions, often without the stress of needing to make it work for you financially, which is something that I find with younger groups, or like even in myself, you want to pursue your passions, but of course we're building a career as well. And so in retirement, you get to just say, I just want paint to paint. I want to go to a pottery class. I want to try this Tai Chi class. And those are the things that we try to work in. And the identity and the social piece and the schedule and routine start to all come together.
For the longest period of time, I always worried that when I were to become an elder, I would be very bored because all the activities that I love doing require movement. So I don't know. What is your take regarding that? Because I think it is very stereotypical into what we envision.
Mm-hmm. Totally. There's a lot that people can do through retirement and through much older ages as well. Part of it is saying, like, reframing even that view that you and I both hold, actually, like, oh, when I'm old, I'm not going to be able to do that when I'm older. But actually, when we maintain our health and strength and mobility consciously, we can do a lot more than what we think. And at the same time, there is a reality, like bodies are changing. It takes longer to recover. It takes longer to warm up. It's different as we start aging. And so we're figuring out how to work with the body and how to modify activities. Retirees, my clients love pickleball for sure. Pickleball is the biggest one and such a social scene in a lot of communities, but all sorts of activities because also they're running and hiking and weightlifting and sometimes just making sure to be walking every day. Like there's a whole spectrum. For me, I'm also a yoga teacher and focusing on therapeutic yoga. And that's something that I will heavily promote to everyone of all ages because I really believe that that also keeps the body really healthy and mobile through all of our years.
I believe it is important, and I don't know if women are better at it or not, but I think we're better at having more diversity in terms of the things that we like, and we're better in terms of creating community. For the most part, at least with me, my husband and I, most of our social events come because of me. And I can see that affecting a lot seniors, because if you're highly dependent on your spouse on creating that agenda when they're not longer around, that can create a lot of issues because where do you start? So what are your recommendations when you have to start over or you have to figure out something after a huge change, retirement or losing a spouse?
That can be very challenging. And the first part, you're really just taking time to allow yourself to be in this transition space and recognizing that transitions are hard. If we're talking about just the retirement itself or losing a spouse, for sure, that's another piece. Through our younger years, we have so much support through transitions. When we're going from high school to college, it's like a big transition and we're so supported all through the process of figuring out where to go. And then when you're arriving, you're welcomed with open arms and all of these activities that are provided for you to help you meet people. And in retirement, you don't have that. There's no one waiting on the other side to catch you and help you navigate. And so, yeah, that's why it's so important to get this information out there to at least bring awareness and know that there are supports in the form of coaching, and also a lot of different programs are out there, but you have to set them up for yourself. Yeah, figuring it out it's a very individual journey, and it's getting in touch with really who are you now? What are your needs? And what are your values at this stage of life? Because this is also a really important time to figure out, like, really, really, what do you want and what's going to bring the most meaning and the most value to your life now. It's easy to kind of just go along and hope that things fall into place and then naturally come up, these friends or events or schedule, but without consciously planning for it and really getting in tune with what you want. That's where the years just kind of float away, and people actually statistically will fall into like a rut. They'll call it the gloom and doom stage of retirement, where there's not a whole lot of meaning. You're not really in tune with what you want. You don't have the same social networks, and you fall into a depression of sorts. Some people, depression.
My brother decided to retire early, and he
Mhm.
retired a couple of years ago. One of the things that he's been very conscious about is creating and going and doing all the things that he never had time to do, because during all of his working years, he worked very long hours and he traveled a lot. So right now he's doing everything he never had the opportunity to do. And I find that very interesting, but it was a very conscious change. He planned it very well. And I don't think people take the time to actually plan and think what they want from this period in their lives.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And what your brother did is exactly what we want. Like, you've worked all of these years, you've saved money, you put in this time, and now you have this freedom and space. And ideally, you're doing exactly that. You've really planned what you want this phase of your life to look like, and you are going after it. But in that, it really takes looking at yourself and figuring out what it is exactly that you want, because you've never had this kind of time and freedom before for most of us. And then having that courage as well to go out and actually do it, because that's another piece.
Do you feel that people are afraid of facing themselves and
Mm,
facing maybe things that they were not able to accomplish, or facing their mistakes in
mm.
life?
Yeah, you've hit on a couple of things come to mind. For sure, retirement creates this space for people where the busyness and the built-in schedule disappears. There's actually time to be with yourself. There's time that you are structuring for yourself. For many people, the first time in their life that they are able to wake up every day and decide what they want to do. In that process, it's essential to be in tune with yourself and what you really want and who you really are. And yeah, that can be really hard, because what also comes up in that space are these reflections about life so far. And there is an awareness that you're not going to live forever. And that starts to become more apparent. People are thinking about it a little bit more. Also, it's again like this time that I'm so passionate about, because it is this time where it's not too late. And we can look at those things that you've wanted to do, mistakes that you think you've made. There's time to correct it in some way or make amends with whatever it is within yourself, or things that you've done. And there's still time to go after those dreams and live these years in the best way possible.
So what would you recommend people to face those realities? Now that, well, we are recording this in May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month.
Mhm.
It's not going to come out in May, but as we are like in this month and making sure that people pay attention to their mental health, what do you recommend people to just face themselves? Because I know a lot of people are so afraid of that piece of retirement, of just like, oh, now I have to face me.
Mhm. Totally. A big part of what I teach and coach is also in the spirituality realm. So
Mhm.
this is something that is very different for every person, what spirituality means to them. But one of the main things, finding time to sit with yourself, to meditate in silence, to pay attention to thoughts and feelings that are arising, really create that space to explore your inner world, that's essential. So being able to sit with that, you can start to see what comes up. And sometimes it's past traumas that haven't been dealt with for years and years. It's common for that to come out in this phase right after retirement. And it's common for these feelings of regret or mistakes to come up. And it's common to feel like it's too late to do some sort of something or to achieve something or make a dream come true. And there's a sense of failure in that. And so really sitting and taking time during this transition to see what comes up is really important. And it's important to be supported through that process a lot of times because it catches people off guard a lot.
I can totally see that. I was talking with a generational trauma expert about this, and just the conversation, there were a lot of things that just came to my mind into, like, I was born after 11 years of my youngest brother. So I had never paid attention of how that affected myself and my being, of having that age gap, and how for a very long time I never considered myself part of the family, because they would come and reminisce about the times they would go to, my grandparents had these vacation home, and they would go there very often. I never got to see the cabin, never went there. There are so many stories. So, and I can just imagine all the things that keep piling up.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are actually facing yourself, it's like, oh, now I have to figure out all of this.
Totally, totally. And yeah, I also wanted to mention, I mean, the reason we got connected is because of your work with older populations and helping people through long-term care and care as people are aging. That's also something that comes up in this retirement phase where you're starting to think about, well, what happens when I'm older? And that ties into the legacy piece, particularly when I work with clients. It's the non-financial legacy. Like, what are you leaving behind that represents who you are and your experiences and the lessons you've learned and the wisdom? So through this process, it's again a great time because it's not the very end of life. So you're being proactive in looking back at all of these experiences, and through that creating something that you can share, and at the same time realizing that there were things that you may have never dealt with or that you had kind of suppressed in your memory. And yeah, it's a really, the personal growth can be so powerful during this time.
So, what are your three biggest recommendations for people out there that are either close to retirement or had just retired?
Let's see, the top three. I think number one is really taking the time to just know that intentional and conscious planning is so powerful and essential. So don't assume just that things are going to fall into place naturally and everything's going to be great without putting in that planning time. You want to know that you are designing your retirement. Otherwise, it will be designed for you. And the years will go by and you'll realize that wasn't really the retirement I wanted to live. So the conscious intentional planning is really the most important part. And then the next piece goes hand in hand, but it's really figuring out who you are at this phase, what you really value, and using that to prioritize what you want to do, because this is a time that you've earned, and it's a time when you are still able to do all of these things, and knowing really what you want that's aligned with your values. And the third part, keeping your body healthy. I mean, it's like brain and body together, but knowing that it's really important at this time to take care of our physical body and our brain health, because the aging process is always happening. but it becomes more apparent that really is your greatest asset. Doesn't matter how much money you have in your retirement accounts. If you don't have a healthy brain and body, then you're not going to be able to enjoy your time.
Thank you so much. This is like the times that we've chat. I love your perspective and how you see life. I think there are a lot of things that we think alike, so I love that. Where can people reach out to you or connect with you?
And my website is alignrxcoaching.com. So you can check out there. We can always do a free consultation call just to meet and see where you're at and how I might be able to help you. Or Alara at alignrxcoaching.com is my email address, and you can always reach out there.
Thank you so much for coming to the podcast, sharing all your bits of knowledge. It was fantastic having you today.
Yeah, thanks so much for this conversation. It's been great, and yeah, so happy to be here.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time.